Turkey has begun a military operation on Syria's Kurdish-held region of Afrin, launching airstrikes and cross-border shelling, with a ground invasion expected on Sunday. More than 70 planes conducted sorties, with all aircraft now reported back at base in Turkey. The campaign, which Ankara has deemed anti-terrorism, has been named Operation Olive Branch. It's aimed at ousting Kurdish militia from Afrin, which has been held by them for 5 years. Turkish cross-border shelling of the area began Friday. RT's Paula Sleer has been following developments.
At least 8 F-16s have been firing from the skies, while on the ground you have the Turkish-backed Syrian opposition rebels who have moved into this enclave. Now, it is an enclave that is controlled by the Kurdish militia, the YPG. From the ground, we're also hearing that the Free Syrian Army have been arriving in buses as well as in trucks that have been fitted out with machine guns. We are receiving reports in terms of the civilian situation there, and there we're hearing that people have been ordered to retreat into their homes and into shelters, but there are reports coming through of people who have been wounded and injured and who are being taken to the local hospital. Now, all of this follows threats over the last few days by the Turkish President Erdogan that he was going to launch a ground offensive into Afrin. It was really just a question of when, and he said that this was really the only answer to root out what he has called terrorist elements there. Take a listen.
The Afrin operation has de facto been started on the ground. This will be followed by Manbij. The promises about Manbij have not been kept, so nobody has a right to say anything.
Now, Manbij is an area that is mostly Arab. It is west of the Euphrates, and it is the next step in terms of the Turkish military's way of dealing with the Kurdish militia. It is not far from the area that the army has entered now, so that is where all eyes are turning for the immediate future.
The Turkish foreign minister has posted a tweet saying the country launched the offensive against Syrian Kurdish militias, exercising its right to self-defence. He added Ankara's actions are strictly in keeping with international law. He went on to stress the operation doesn't target civilians, but aims only to take out terrorist groups. RT's Igor broke down the distribution of forces for us and what brought Turkey to Syria in the first place.
This is what the situation on the ground in Syria looks like right now. Afrin, the region where the Turks are carrying out their military operation. The area highlighted in green is where the Turkey-backed rebels are, to a certain extent at least. They are helping Ankara from the ground. Red are the Syrian army, these are the Syrian army guys. They don't have any problem with the Kurds, but they do have a problem with these guys, because this is the area, the green area is also the region which harbors Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or Nusra, a terrorist organization. And finally here you have Manbij. It is a city also controlled by the Kurds, and it could be Turkey's game plan. Erdogan has already said that after he's done with Afrin, Manbij is next. This operation hardly came out of the blue, you know. The Kurds have been historically a major thorn in Turkey's side. But what catalyzed things now was the Pentagon saying they are going to create a so-called Syrian border force.
The coalition is working jointly with the Syrian Democratic Forces to establish and train the new Syrian Border Security Force. Currently, there are approximately 230 individuals training in the BSF's inaugural class, with the goal of a final force size of approximately 30,000.
One very precise description of America's intentions there. By that point, Turkey had had enough. Ankara beefed up its forces on the Syrian border, deployed tanks, and President Erdogan vowed to destroy, quote, this terrorist force before Washington even has a chance to create it. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson tried to do some damage control, saying that the situation has been misportrayed, misdescribed, and that some people misspoke. Well, that wasn't nearly enough to contain Turkey's fury. Ankara has been keeping the United States in the loop about the operation against Washington's supposed ally. America, which arguably pitted Turkey against the Kurds, has now called on them to focus on the fight with ISIL, pretty much the same as saying it's every man for himself in this conflict. Turkey has also notified Syria about the action, which Damascus is not happy about at all. Russia, in its turn, has been cautious and called for all parties to pull the punches.
The main reason behind the developing crisis in this part of Syria is the provocative steps taken by the United States, which were aimed at isolating areas with predominantly Kurdish populations. Uncontrolled deliveries by the Pentagon of modern weapons to pro-American formations in northern Syria contributed to the rapid escalation of tension in the region and led to a special operation by Turkish troops.
Loose lips sink ships, they say. Well, this time we're looking at a potential all-out war. Igor Zhdanov, RT.
And I can bring in now Yaşar Gökus, who's the former Turkish foreign minister and former ambassador to the UN. Pleasure to have you on this evening. I was interested, how far do you think Mr. Erdogan is going to go? Is this going to be confined to northern Syria, or could this offensive become much more large scale?
Well, if it is the entire northern Syria, it's already too big. It started it was going to start with Afrin, but later on other places were added, such as Manbij, that's to say the area which is already under the Turkish military control, but the city of Manbij was not captured. This time, I understand that Turkey is determined to enter Manbij as well, and from there go to the east of Euphrates, which is where there are Kurdish cantons actually of Kobane and Jazira.
Russia is saying that it was America's policies towards the Kurds in northern Syria that really were the catalyst to leading up to this assault from Turkey. Would you put responsibility for what's happening on Washington or not?
Yes, to a very large extent, because if the United States was not going to arm Kurds, Turkey wouldn't have arrived to the point where it is. And Turkey tried to draw the attention of an ally, a NATO ally, that you should not arm and train and provide ammunition to a terrorist group which is linked to the dangerous PKK terrorist organization in Turkey, because Turkey regards the YPG, which is the military branch of PYD, that's to say the strongest political Kurdish political party in Syria, and Turkey wanted United States to stop this supply of arms, but United States using several excuses continued to supply, and this is where we arrived at this point today.
Where's this going to take Turkey-US relations, do you think? Will they remain strategic partners? It seems like things are getting worse between the two.
Actually, the United States tried to wash its hands by saying that it has no military presence in Afrin specifically. But if first of all, there may be many people armed and equipped and trained by the United States in Afrin also, but the American presence, military presence in Afrin may be absent. This may be understandable, but if Turkey continues the military operation and carries it to Manbij and to the east of Euphrates, then it will come across with the Americans. I mean, two allies will be fighting in a third country. This is something that is not acceptable normally in an alliance.
And what reaction do you anticipate on the part of Iran here?
Iran may keep silent, but of course, you may have noticed that the interest of Ankara and Damascus are also converging on this particular issue of Kurdish arming the Kurds in the north, and the Kurds asking for autonomous region or federated region. And this is against the wish of the Damascus. So Ankara and Damascus come closer to each other on that point. But of course, Iran has another agenda. For Iran, it is the continuation of the regime in Damascus, whereas Turkey's interest with Damascus only coincides and becomes convergent on the question of arming of Kurds. Beyond that, there is no convergence of interest between Damascus and Ankara, while there is continued convergence of interest between Iran and Damascus beyond what is happening now in Afrin.
Yashar, I appreciate your time. My guest this hour, Yashar Yildiz, is a former Turkish foreign minister.
Thank you.